Goodness.
Yeah, and you can see how big the wings are, and you can see the down that's coming off. Yeah. Hello. There you go. When they get to this age, they get much more independent and much less cooperative, basically. But you can see the wings are getting there. It's still got a ways to go. Still probably got a week or so to go before it's ready. But it came out last night, I think, for the first time. You can also see the bill is full of down, and that's because it's been preening off this down. So, remember I told you about the glands in its nostrils that act as little reverse osmosis things, what enables them to drink seawater, and it gives the name to that family of seabirds called tube-nosed seabirds, and you can see it on top of the bill.
Yep.
It's like the two nostrils are fused together, almost like a jet intake, and that both makes it more efficient when they're taking in oxygen as they're flying. It also houses those glands, those salt excretion glands, and it enables them to very finely gauge the wind direction and strength over the waves. Because they fly, they're so efficient, they have these extra long, although they're a fairly small bird, they have these long, thin wings, which when the time it's ready to fly, the sea will be about a meter wingspan, total meter, and their flight is so efficient that they use only 9 to 13% of the energy of, say, a tropic bird, a long tail, which is constantly flapping to stay in the air. These guys don't. They high speed, high efficient gliding. They hardly ever flap. They're just taking advantage. What they do is they flap to get up to a height, and then they dive basically in a glide into the trough of a wave on the ocean. And so they're trading altitude for speed and gaining speed, losing height and gaining speed. And then they come up over the crest of the wave, and as they come up over the top, the wind hits them right in the face, and they suddenly gain height and lose speed, all free energy, and then they tip over and they start diving again, and they lose height and gain speed, and then they just do that. So all they need is a few flaps to get them started, and they can fly like that, going 40 to 50 miles an hour for hundreds of miles. And we have tracked them with GPS tags, moving up to 350 miles a day. So that means they can cross from here to North Carolina in less than 2 days. That is the secret of their success. That's how in 5 to 7 days they can cover 3,000 or 4,000 miles. They're basically the North Atlantic's equivalent of albatrosses, and they are in fact very close relatives of albatrosses, which have the same tube noses as them and the same sort of long, thin wing loading. So I'm just gonna put him in his bag so I can weigh him and see if he's been fed recently. He feels pretty solid.
You need someone to write down for
Do
you.
you want me to write it down?
Yeah. It's pretty.
Go back to my job.
Okay.
Stop slacking, Georgina.
Yeah. Okay. So I've already got the nest number down there, so I'm just gonna get the weight. I won't do as much, but I will actually check the bill length and tarsus length on this now, because it's at the stage where I can start to sex them. You can only do that in the last week or so before they depart. Yeah, he's been fed again recently. So the parents are still doing their thing. He is, let's see, 368, so minus the weight of the bag, 348 grams. So I'm gonna measure the wing chord. They usually start exercising once the wing chord reaches about 240 millimeters, and he is at 247. So yeah, he's right on schedule. It still has to go a little bit more, has to go to about this length, about 275, before it's ready to fly to sea. When it starts, the wing chord is about 15 millimeters. By the time they're a month old, it's about 90 or so. By the time they're 2 months, it's about 160. By the time they're 3.5 months, about 275. So he is at 247, I think I said. Yeah. So yeah, he's in good shape.
I said he's about 3.5 months old.
He's about 3.5 months old right now. Yeah, they take about, like a tropic bird or longtail will take just over 2 months, about 65 to 70 days from hatching to departure. These guys take anywhere from 90 to 110 days to fledge, so quite a bit longer. Okay, so this one, it's already banded. and the band number is E0902. And I am going to measure the tarsus length on the same leg. I just have to. It's hard to see through all the down. You should see when they're younger, they're a complete. They're a complete round ball of down, and the only way you can tell which end is which is that there's a little black beak sticking out of one end. Otherwise, they look like a giant dust bunny, like you find under your bed or something, or under the furniture. Okay, 37.8 millimeters. Now the tropic bird was only about 22, 23 millimeters. So it's a much longer. You can see their leg is much longer. They have this big webbed foot, which is bicolored. It has sharp claws on it, which they use for digging. It has a little vestigial spur. That's all that's left of the fourth toe. And you can see these very long, skinny legs. They're much more agile. Tropic birds can't hardly walk and land at all. These guys can walk up, they climb up me, they'll take off from my head, they'll climb up a vertical tree trunk 15, 20 feet up like a squirrel. They're very agile on land. Now, last but not least, I'm going to measure the bill, and these guys are actually usually a lot easier. They're much less likely. They can draw blood. Those bills are very hooked and razor sharp, but they're just more cooperative, a much more cooperative animal. Yes. See, I've been handling this one ever since he hatched, about twice a week now, so yeah. Okay, let's just do it. I know no kid likes to have its nose clean. Okay, so it's a male. Let's see, 29.2 millimeters. Yeah, that's a male. Because of the length of the bill. If it was a female, it would be like only about 25, 26 millimeter. The males have slightly bigger bill and slightly thicker. The females have a very delicate looking bill. So yeah, so that is, and you can see the last thing is plumage, the plumage development, and just put plumage equals, and I'll give you just, just do a letter followed by a slash, by another letter, by a slash. And it's just F for face, you can see the white facial feathers coming in. Yeah. W for wings, which are down free, and T for tail, that long tail coming up. But it's still got a lot. Usually at this stage, the whole upper part is free of down, but this one's still very, very down. You can see a little. Here we go. Yeah. So S for shoulder as well. So that is finally. But he's been an unusually hirsute. Chick there. Okay.
The light doesn't bother them.
No, not for short periods, because you think about, I always think they live in this underground burrow for 3.5 months or so. They come out at night when they do their exercising and their imprinting, and then there's no practice flights. The first flight, when they take off from a cliff edge or a rock or a tree out to sea, that is their first flight. There's no practice flights. It's a leap of faith. They either helicopter straight up and they move out, or they go straight out like a cruise missile. And I always think it must be one of the most huge adjustments of any creature to have to make, that they're flying out to sea in the dark, and then all of a sudden the sun rises right in their face, and it's like, wow, they're in this huge big ocean in the day, it must be just quite a shock. Now this guy is about 2 weeks younger. It's also a little bit more vocal. Yeah, you can see the wings are quite a bit shorter. Tail's pretty well developed. It's a slightly smaller bird.
What number was this?
This is from 824, R824. Now my main thing with him, to measure the weight, he feels fairly good. Yes. See that those inside the burrow, it's hard for them to spread both wings at the same time. So how they get away with it is they stretch out one wing at a time. They stretch it, exercise the muscles and everything, and then they do the other wing. And when it comes outside, they can suddenly stretch, both wings at the same time. But you can see the down is just blowing off. And you could also see underneath all the down are the the true adult feathers coming out, you know. Okay. Yeah. So you could not just hold a tropic bird. Oh! Yep, I deserve that. I absolutely deserve that. That's what I do. That's also a good way of telling that he was fed last night. He's got a lot of extra moisture in there that's gotta come out. So, okay. So let's get you back in there. Ow, ow. It's nibbling at my fingers. Yeah, that's why you always carry Scott towels nearby. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, he was 303 grams in my last check about 3 days ago, and even with that little bit of weight he just avoided all over my hand, it is now up to 346. Yeah, so that's good. That's what we want to see, is the parents continuing feeding visits, you know, as long as possible, you know, before they fledge. Because if they are under a certain weight, like if they're under 200 grams, for them to be able to survive, I have to actually start feeding them. I have to give them, you know, extra feeds for them to develop enough fat reserves and muscle mass to fledge. Yeah, his ready to band, it's 206 millimeters. So, you do get quite ambidextrous.
Jeremy, someone started to ask, and I shushed them.
What's that?
Started to ask what you feed the Cahows when you're raising them.
When I do, I found that the best things to feed them, oily fish and anchovies are the perfect thing, and they are one of the few oily fishes that you can get, because they are adapted. They can live in both very cold water temperatures and in warmer water temperatures. So if I can get fresh anchovies, that's almost all you need to do. You might need to give them some vitamin supplements, or if they haven't been fed in a while, some electrolytes. So basically, it's like Gatorade for birds, more or less. Gives them a bit of extra energy and hydrates them. But that's more or less, you know, only if they haven't been fed for a long time. And all the birds this year are in really good shape. So what I'm going to do first is just turn him upside down. I'm going to measure his tarsus length. Might as well do that from the leg before I throw a band on it. Come on. Oh. Yeah, somewhere in all this down is the leg. Here we go. Very talkative. Yes, there we go. You can see those long, skinny legs that they have. Much, much longer than a tropic bird. Wow, this is a long one. 39.6 millimeter. That's good. Okay, so I'm going to fit him with a band, a new band on the left leg. And this band number is E0915. So E0915. And basically these bands are made out of a special alloy. It's got chromium, it's got nickel and stainless steel in it. It's called Incalloy. It's what they use for springs in very expensive watches, like Rolex watches and things like that. And it's corrosion resistant, so they're designed to last for the life of even a long-lived seabird in a very salty, corrosive environment. You know, this thing will look brand new when this bird might be 50. This bird could well be alive 50 years from now. I doubt very much that I will be, but this bird will be, so it'll still be carrying the bling that I'm giving it right now to carry around for the rest. And the nice thing is that you can then identify, you know, who this bird is, you know, who its parents are, when it hatched, when it fledged, you know, what nest it came from, what island it came from, and what year. And you can follow it for the rest of its life. Okay, so it's special banding pliers. Basically, it has different size holes for each size of band. And it sounds terrible, but if you do it properly, you'd never even touch the leg of the bird. All it's doing is crimping the bands on the leg. You have to get it. It's hard with a chick because it's hard to see in all the down here. Yes, I know. It's so terrible.
I know it sounds fun.
It sounds awful, but you're not even touching the leg of the bird at all. One more. I just want it to be as flush as possible so that it doesn't catch on anything. There we go. You see it's nice and loose, goes up and down the leg, goes around and around, and that is a lifelong identification mark for it. Okay, so you've had a lot to say, so this bird is probably still too young for me to sex it properly, so I'll probably do that in one of the next checks. I won't check his bill yet.
Oh, okay.
But yeah, but he's looking really good. You see, they all have different hairstyles and such. Some of them have the perfect rendition of a mohawk. Like as they lose their down, usually they end up with down only on their belly and on the top of their head, and the rest of it's this beautiful sleek seabird. But he still has a long way to go. This one, I'd say at least another 2.5 weeks, maybe 3 weeks to go. But